I think we would like to all deep dive into the conversations. But before we get into AI, our first panel is about the whole evolution of marketing, the evolution of marketeers, and we have with us a very esteemed panel. And may I start first by inviting Abraham Alapatt to the stage. Abraham is the president and group head marketing Thomas Cook India Limited. Yogesh Nambiar, country marketing director, Harman India. And Rathin Lahiri, head marketing and CSR, SBI General Insurance. Good to have you, gentlemen, here. Would you like to take my speech? Yogesh, can I start with you? Okay. Sure. So, the what we are talking about is modern marketing. Now, modern marketing is something every year. Marketing is of course modern, but when you hear this term, what do you understand? What do you think? What modern marketing today is? What is its shape and form?
I may say something today and tomorrow it may be different. So what I can only say what I understand is the right form of modern marketing, and I'm with my career spanning over media agencies, advertising agencies, and now with an OEM. Uh, I can only say modern marketing is data driven marketing. And it should have always been data driven marketing 10 years ago. 10 years from now, it should be data driven marketing. That's what I understand as modern marketing.
Abraham?
I think the single biggest change, I extend what the point you made. I think the whole shift from magic, you know creative genius kind of thing to looking at it more data driven, analytical and focused. I think based on the data. I think are the two or three big changes that are made. In the process, it's become more complex, of course, to the point that you made in your inaugural thing. But I think the principles of great creativity and ideas and building brands, I think, will still continue. And I think that's India.
So, do you feel the brand still rules the roost?
For sure. I think this actually, what we call modern marketing with data and analytics and AI and all that powering it, actually is just helping big brands get better if they leverage the brand better. It's easier, of course, for startups as well because they can quickly reach scale and reach the right audience without wasting too much money or having big budgets. But I think equally, in fact, I would argue that there's a bigger case for strong brands already because they have a head start, if you will. There's enough equity. Today, if you can leverage the same tools that everybody has, the data democratization that we're talking about, I think big brands can boost up faster because of the base effect.
So I would say that the role of marketing is to drive organic customer growth, right? Because you can always deploy more salespeople, you can deploy more sales discounts and scale that, but that is a certain variable cost. The reason somebody is investing in marketing is you believe that you can put a bunch of fixed costs into whatever it is and drive customers which will break this variable cost pattern. Now, earlier, the way to do modern marketing was advertising and brand communication and so on. Today, you have multiple levers. Content is a lever, digital is a lever, cross-sell, upsell is a lever. Your customer base itself is a big lever. Reference is a big lever. So I think today, I would say that to help modern marketing grow, you have far more tools. And I would also subscribe to what Abraham said, that actually it's made the job of larger brands much easier while giving some small maverick brands an opportunity to come to the table.
But is when you say it's given an opportunity to the bigger brands by giving those kind of tools, those tools are accessible to everyone, right? So, but is it also dependent on the scale of marketing that you're doing?
So again, if you look at it, there are India is such a large country, it's such a diverse country. There are very few national brands. Again, if you look at it across categories, it's the top three brands which occupy 70-80% market share, 80-90% of profits. If you look at, look at brands which we've all heard of, look at e-commerce brands, look at apparel brands, look at fashion brands. There are a bunch of startups. A lot of them come up. They're very big for 2-3 years and they fade away, right? So I think the key again for everyone, there's a level playing field. It actually, to my mind, the playing field is becoming more skewed for larger brands because they have better resources, right? And today, using data, using AI, once somebody is sold into a brand or a franchise, it is easier, using all kinds of things to get that customer base to cross sell and upsell. Uh, Let me just, let me give you a small example. The SBI bank has got some 48 crore customers, right, which is across everything. Now, if you look at all its subsidiaries, which are considered private sector, the mutual fund, the life insurance, cards, they're actually the leading mutual fund is SBI Mutual Fund and not any of the other players. The leading life insurance company is SBI Life Insurance versus any other players. So how does this happen? These other subsidiaries are not really doing so much of advertising and so on. The distribution is replicable by most other large brands, but they're actually below the line doing a whole bunch of cross sell and upsell, and that's what's giving them the ability to leverage it. So that's what I mean. That I think for larger brands which are able to use this tech and data, the opportunities are much higher. For smaller brands, the opportunity is to occupy some segment, some niche, some geographical area, some distribution channel, and excel in that.
Yogesh, you want to add something? And in fact, I'm also asking because all three here you are from established brands. These are the larger brands. And I think you mentioned that the established brands, of course, have a greater advantage because they are past that awareness stage. And but do you think, from a marketer's perspective, do you think moving from that stage, still it's something which you can now rest on your laurels and move on to the next phase, or do you constantly keep evolving your strategy? With respect to challenger brands, I'm asking.
So absolutely not. And we were just in a strategy session with our research company 2 weeks ago. And sir, I have a small difference of opinion to the well-known established brands occupying the larger share within the pie. Uh, Unfortunately, I come from the audio world, and the audio brands don't occupy the top spot or the top 5 spots. They don't occupy the top 5 spots. It's the mobile smartphone companies that occupy the top 5 spots within the audio space. Uh, in the consumer segment, so we occupy the B2B as well as the B2C segment. Uh, so just to give you an idea, Apple sells 4 SKUs and has a $20 billion business with them. We sell 300 SKUs and we have a $10 billion global market share. So, and coming to the point on these new maverick companies that have started coming within our space, and I can only talk about our audio space. Uh, we saw when we were seeing data 2 weeks ago, if we were 10% of the headphone share, there is one brand which occupies in volume 37% of share, which is a startup 5 years ago. So, and they are number one currently in volume, predominantly because they are a white label company and they sell in the sub 2000 category. So under 2000, which is under, say, $15, and the way we look at numbers, under 2000, data shows that if we sell 40 million units of headphones in the country, uh, 27 million units, which is more than 60% share, is with sub 2000 category. And the rest is played between the established players. So brands which compared with us, we play within the 30% share. And to answer your question, awareness is not everything. We've been trying to see this possibility actually from the funnel now, which is we've added one more. So earlier it was awareness, uh, consideration, and then conversion, right? Now there is awareness, there is familiarity, there's consideration, there's preference, and then there is conversion. So the amount of crazy tools that come to explain
And there is recommendation post that. More important.
that's the worst part.
And there's also baad mein dekhenge.
Correct. So the steps from 3 to 5, and I don't know where this will go to try and set ourselves into a customer's mindset, is crazy. We are trying to understand this within the modern marketing world, and that's why I started by saying that as far as you can organize your data and not be siloed in to make your life more difficult, you will be able to work within the modern marketing infrastructure. I don't know whether it's modern marketing or not, but within the infrastructure that we have, the only way to have any progress or any customer mind share is probably driving through data.
But actually, I don't see a contradiction at all because, in a way, if you look at what you're saying and given what I know of your products and positioning, I think you're positioned at a very, you are going for a high quality, premium, audiophile sort of segment, right? So that is a very small segment that's willing to say, hey, listen, all other things being equal, I'm willing to pay more for something really I can't explained by features. It's not just going to come in a brochure, but it's the quality of experience, right? It's like maybe a Mercedes and a Maruti, right? Meaning they're both cars, but a very different segment. I think where this will probably, the point he was making is probably more relevant is when we talk of services, right? Where the perceived parity until you've experienced it is harder to explain. In which case then, if you're a bigger, more established service brand, as both of us are, I think all other things being equal, A, the bigger brands reach more people, right, from a cohort point of view. So first of all, the top of the funnel is bigger. Two, let's just say this was the universe of audience, and all of you got the same message from a leader and a brand you hadn't heard of. All other things being equal, since you haven't experienced either, you're more likely to opt for the brand you've heard of, right? So especially if it's financial services or even a holiday with your family, which costs a few lakhs. So I think that's really the point, and I think we have to see that. But again, for the sake of argument, sorry, I'm taking your role. Is also this the modern marketing and the tools that it is put in the hands of modern marketers has helped challenger brands do more faster to your category competitor, which they could never have done, let's say, even 6-7 years ago, at the scale and pace they are able to do today, because they're able to go after the right people at the right point of the decision-making point and go with really focused marketing resources and completely out-of-the-box ideas. For example, you had to have a lot of money to go do a 30-second commercial on national TV, right? But you need a fraction of that to have a really crazy idea and cut through, let's say, the 10,000 people who at this moment are looking for a pair of headphones. I think that's the big sort of difference it's created almost in terms of both.
But Yogesh, for example, you mentioned the other brand is in the sub 2000 category, but you still hold that 30%. Operate in that 30%. But don't you feel that the challenger brand will also come into your territory with all its distribution?
For that, they'll have to invest in R&D,
Yeah.
which is a whole lot of money, which I hope they do. If if they can invest in the R&D side of things, again, which drives data, if they can create their own sound signature, if I may say that, then they'll be able to challenge it. Because customers are not fools. You cannot fool a customer by saying that I give you the best sound, unless they know that you put money behind giving them or trying to give them the best sound. Uh, our and for a moment we even thought that does our legacy even matter to customers? We've been doing sound for 75 years. The man who gave cinema sound is the brand. And James Bolo Lansing, which is JBL, who created the first cone or the first horn in inside cinema audio, is the brand itself. If this legacy needs authority or it needs to put money behind saying that, hey, we were the first company to make audio, then no new brand can come in and just say that we can give you the best audio.
So I'm picking up two phrases which you mentioned. You have mentioned, Yogesh, that they need to invest in that kind of different sound signature, a kind of their own differentiating factors. And Ibrahim, you were mentioning about insurance. That in financial services, of course, there's not much of a parity is not easy to explain. If I got it correctly, in fact, I also have worked in financial services, and I can vouch for it that it is not easy to get those inroads when it comes to money, and insurance is probably one of the toughest categories to sell into. So for each of you, my question is, does the modern marketer now really chase differentiation, or is it more about just getting those trials done, just getting those demos done, or getting the first purchase done?
You want
Anyone who wants to take this?
So I think my sense is I think differentiation is definitely important. I think what we're definitely seeing, we are talking of the digital marketer and the digital marketing environment. If you think about the digital customer today, I think this is a very different quote unquote animal, right? So this is a customer now who has probably got more information at their fingertips than ever before when they come to a conversation. If you just look at our category, which is travel, largely holidays and leisure, if you leave the B2B business, and foreign exchange, there's a customer today who has the confidence of data, real time, from multiple sources while they're sitting in front of you at a transaction conversation. So this is no longer like it was a few years ago where we were the authorities, right? To your point, we invented modern travel, or Mr. Cook invented modern travel, the first traveler's check, the first hotel coupon, you name it, it was invented by Thomas Cook. But that doesn't give us any more the authority to preach or, our words not gospel anymore, right? The customer's coming in with a very specific point of view, with a very clear understanding of what the options are, very clear understanding of what the pricing is, and is able to sort of poo-poo you right there, right? So the conversation is a lot more challenging at one level. B, it's constantly pushing you. So you definitely have to innovate and differentiate. Also, I think, meaning it's easier said than done, is the total customer experience, right? At the point of transaction and at every point thereafter, including the holiday, let's say, and there are multiple stages, we're coordinating with multiple partners because none of these services are ours, the airline, the hotel, sightseeing, etc. But you have to sort of stitch it together and provide that experience because that's the expectation they have and why they believe they are paying a little bit more to us. And I think that quality of conversation and relationship is really what is going to distinguish. Because price you can't do much because they are competing and comparing. So you have to be able to explain and rationalize it, and most importantly, be able to demonstrate it.
Rathin?
So, I think the first job of a marketer is actually to understand his own organization, right? And understand what are the competitive resources and the strategies that the organization has, and actually be a voice to the CEO to help him, focus sharply on certain segments. The point I want to make is that if you take a market like India, there are very, very few brands which can operate across segments, across distribution channels, and excel in everything, right? That is not possible for almost everyone. So I think the first job, like I said, is to understand the context of the organization itself, what its growth plans are, and kind of channelize or help channelize resources towards markets, towards customer segments, and therefore then to the second level of technologies and so on. Right. So that's one. Second is like I think everybody's been saying is that everybody caters to a certain core segment, right, which has led to its success. So the first job is to actually nurture that core segment and like I said, cross sell, upsell, use everything to engage and keep that segment intact. Versus and then look at other emerging segments, and then more than marketing, as he mentioned about that other company with its newer product, what you would need to compete with the other segments is you may need a differentiated product. You may need a differentiated marketing mix. You may need a differentiated acquisition channel and so on. So to give you an example, we sell health insurance, right? So we sell a bunch of insurance through our bank channels. We also sell it through other private sector bank partners. We are also available on all other, digital fintechs, right? Like a PhonePe, a Policy Bazaar, and so on. Now, the way we devise the mix actually is different for what we sell on various channels. And that's how you can actually, essentially provide the best value to the customers. So I think behind everything is a lot of data. And those tools are available with all of us. But the key is to not have one marketing mix, catering to everyone, because that will fail. The key today is to use, all the elements of the marketing mix to change the product a bit, to change the pricing a bit, to change the communication channels a bit, so that you have the best, uptake.
So you're saying constantly keep fine tuning it.
Yeah. So I constantly keep fine tuning it is the second part. The first part is different segments have different needs and require different product mixes and marketing mixes. So align one or two or three, segments and have different kind of things. So if you take travel, for example, which is simpler, there will be a bunch of customers who will be very value focused. There will be a bunch of customers who are going on business who would be very, what do you call, experience focused. There's a bunch of customers, who will want to do multiple countries in one, outing, versus trying to do one place and know which is the best cafe and the best museum and the best art shop. So even if you take travel or any of the categories, there are multiple customer segments. Each have different needs. Each react to various things differently. Some people, not everybody is price conscious. Some people would be price conscious. Some people would be experience conscious. And therefore, you have to tailor your marketing mix, under the hood to these segments differently. And today, that's possible once you understand what is it that the customer values. So for example, for each customer segment, we actually do a very detailed NPS analysis, something as basic as that, which has been around for years. But that actually tells us what are the things that the customers are, promoting and liking about us, and what are our detractor points. And then you have to work at the back end to kind of solve them, and again keep changing the mix.
So modern marketing warfare is about picking your battles. Yogesh, you agree with that?
Yeah, just on that point, and we've been trying to answer this in our heads and with our agency. I wanted to understand this from both of you. One is within the health insurance segment. Would you invest money on a Munna Bhai and circuit to make a 30-second ad? And you within the travel segment, would you put money behind a Ranveer Singh and Alia to promote buying tickets?
So I think the other thing underlying everything is today the customer is massively challenged in terms of attention, right? So I look at YouTube ads. Every time you see these ads which come while you're waiting to watch whatever else on YouTube, and a lot of them are digital companies, fintechs, whatever you call them, and they're running that same ad, which is a 30-second ad, which is rolling around for the 10 seconds while you're waiting for your ad to. So to me, the number one thing I think is that the customer is starved for attention. You think you have 30 seconds, but you actually have 3 or 4 seconds. For anybody who's a marketer, just do an analysis of how long the customer's attention actually stays on any piece of communication, right? And you will find it is not more than 3 or 4 seconds. So in that time, I think a lot of brands are using the first part of advertising, which is let's grab attention, right? Uh, and that could appeal to a certain bunch of customers. Like I said, it could appeal to a certain bunch of customers. We feel for a product which you're buying when you're 30, 35, and hopefully you're going to consume when you're 60, 65, 70, it is better to kind of promote trust. It is better to promote reliability. It is better to promote service, and talk about those things. So again, it's to do with as a younger brand or a younger kid, right? The younger baby, you have to make more noise to draw attention. That is the first job. So maybe that's
In my category, the reference he's making is not a smaller, younger baby, but I think to your point, and with due respect to the competitor that you referred to in my sector that uses these two celebrities, the way I look at it is they're in a very different place. They are about scale, they're about valuation, they're a funded, sort of business. We are a listed, need to make profits, have to account for every rupee kind of business. So we are probably more pragmatic about saying, what's the opportunity cost of investing in two big celebrities versus can I put that into hardcore product building, proposition building, creative, messaging and so on. And obviously we've chosen the latter. I never say never in marketing. It's not that I'm against celebrities and what they stand for. My only point is that typically in a lot of cases I've seen, the celebrity gets more value from a lot of these campaigns than the brand itself. So I think the key is that the messaging and the brand should not be overshadowed by the celebrity, as is very often the case. I think the key is to, if you're using a celebrity, you have to use them well and in a way that they don't overshadow, because people will remember the celebrity ad without remembering the brand. And a lot of us remember ads like these. That cement ad with Amitabh, it really doesn't do much for the brand, right? So I think that's the way I'd look at it. More on the idea.
That's exactly where we also summed it up and said, no more celebrities.
Sorry, if I can just add one. So in the last World Cup which happened, I think some 3,000 crores of advertising happened, right? If I ask everyone to write down 5 ads which they remember from the World Cup, how many of you can remember 5 ads? 3,000 crores. Right?
In fact, that's a very interesting point you have brought out. We can't even name 5 ads. And in fact, interestingly, one of the panel discussions later on in the day is also about creativity, especially when we are getting into AI. So is creativity, lack of creativity, the reason that we don't have that kind of memorable advertising? Do you think marketers today have, they should be more left-brained or they should be more right-brained?
See, you have to start with one simple assumption about the customer. The customer is not looking out for your ad. The customer doesn't care about your ad. At best, you will grab 3 to 5 seconds of attention. In that time, you have to hook him with your brand, with your message. To do all of that, you have to, try and make impact in the shortest possible time. I think there are lots of opportunities for innovation in marketing. I think this is one of those, right? The classical 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds to tell a story. That zamana is gone. And if you see, your kids, your younger brothers, the teenagers, they're not even going to give you 10 seconds. So how do you communicate your point within a 5 to 10 seconds? If that's the brief, then you would do something different versus saying, let's make an ad, let's get a celebrity, let's start with a story, then there'll be a build up, then there'll be a climax, the brand comes in and ta-da! That ta-da, only you are the guy seeing it.
So
right, the customer's gone away.
So I think they think more creatively because the attention span is less. So Yogesh, for your case also, are you, your marketing strategies are driven also more by that intuition, that creativity, or driven more by numbers?
So for us, it is predominantly driven by numbers. Whether left brain or right brain, I don't know. If you have a brain, you will use it in the right direction. Uh, and most marketeers look at this data. Sometimes they choose to ignore it because they like a certain creative. Sometimes they choose to change the whole creative because they're going by certain data. So it depends on what you're believing at that point in time to go with that content. I don't think content is bad. I only think that the attention span of your customer, like he said, is very short, very short. And if in 6 seconds, if you can, and now it's come down to 3 seconds, the last I heard, in 3 to 6 seconds, if you can fit your brand in there with the brains that you have, then I think you're home. Because from my perspective, for me or my brand, if my awareness levels, because I've been here for the last 75 years in the country doing selling products for the last 20-25 years, if my awareness level is 96%, uh, when it comes down to purchase or conversion, it is actually 2 or 3%. So that's the gap that we are talking about. So it's crazy what customers need.
So it's a narrow playing field. Okay?
I think today there's a tendency, and this is part of this modern marketing conversation, what we call impulse or moment marketing, as they call it. There's a big rush to say, okay, listen, everybody's doing something on, let's say, India's thing in the World Cup. We also need to do something. So I'm not saying that's not right. I think there's a trend, you sort of ride it if you can. It's tactical, it's a good approach tactically. But I think if you have to step back, I think the key to building sustainable brands and therefore in the long term return on marketing investment is to really think about to your point, clearly understanding what segment you want to go after, which is a positioning larger point, and be clear about not getting distracted by anything else. So for example, our sense is that we want to be in the premium mass segment. There's the very premium segment that I don't think we can customize to. We're very particular and it's time consuming. At the other end, there's the low value, only flight tickets and I'll negotiate every rupee on that flight ticket kind of segment. I don't think we want to be in that space either. So we are clear about that. B is what is the core message this brand wants to stand for, right? What's that part of your life that I can play, right? What's that proposition? And then every campaign comes from that. Then how creative is the idea based on that messaging? I think what we've lost in the process of moment marketing is this. I just need to do something quickly to latch on, and I'm being measured by how many moments I can ride on, and therefore you are pretty much then going by that moment. How quickly can I churn out? How efficiently something? Not really sure if it's helping your cause in the long run.
So then there was this holy grail of loyalty, which as marketers, it was the ultimate thing. If you have done that loyalty, it then pays for itself, all that those marketing activities. Do you think loyalty is dead?
No, it is there, but in a certain age group. In the younger age group, if they and there are these alphas, betas, Z's, whatever you may want to call them. I don't want to term them as alphabets or words, but I think they will believe you if you say the truth. If you walk the talk, they will believe you, and they'll be loyal to you. But otherwise, they don't need to. The earlier bunch, and I can talk about my age group, the earlier bunch believed in what a brand said, continued with it, and stayed with it. The newer generation is not interested in doing that. They're happy to move.
I think it's yes and no. I largely agree with him. I think loyalty definitely works. In our category, for example, 30 to 35% is repeat customers year on year. So that's one of the keys, I think, to strong service brands. There's a base that is loyal, and some of these are multi-generational loyalty. So we're like talking 4 generations of loyalty. The key is not to lose that or compromise that, because that's crucial, right? The second thing is how do you, in our case, we're an old brand, and the risk with old brands is do you have appeal to younger people, right? So in the last few years, our focus has been how do we stay relevant to India's young, which is the dominant population anyway now. And we're happy to say that in the last 5 years, we've actually got our average age down by 10 years, which is a great thing of sustainability for strong brands. To the argument about young people not being loyal, I'd say they have a lot more visibility and they're a lot more impulse driven. So I think the key is to really a new brand, to our earlier conversation, has a chance to get in sideways, which they didn't earlier. So you as an established older brand have to constantly reinforce the reason why they have to be loyal in a way that's relevant to them, right? Because otherwise the challenger brand will come in sideways.
So,
Sorry, if I can just say quickly. So I think there's a lot of noise, right? Which wasn't, and which is because of the mobile and data and so on. So the consumer is bombarded with a lot of noise, and therefore there is a massive attention deficit, which is there. That's one. From the consumer's point of view, once he's part of a franchise, he wants to be loyal. He wants to feel good about the brand. So I think basic human emotions remain the same. The opportunity for distraction is much higher. So I think for brands, if we know who our consumer segment is, ring fence them, make them feel good about the brand themselves. Not end it at that point of sale, but keep communicating with the consumer even post sale on simple stuff, right? Like for us, we communicate how to stay healthy, health benefits, and a couple of other things that we are working on travel. 3 months later, saying hopefully you enjoyed whatever, London or whatever, Paris, and these are the 5 more upcoming destinations. Because again, that's a category where you plan 3-4 months in advance that here's what I want to, where I'll go. So I think there are a lot of today. See, it is what it is. You have to bat with what you have. But I think today with digital, with an ability to reach out to customers directly and communicate, there are lots more opportunities to engage with the customer, right? Which wasn't there earlier. So I think it's, like I said, it's how you use what you have.
So you're trying to understand, of course, you said segmentation. Then you have to decide which segments to go with. You have to decide each strategy to what to communicate. Is all that driven by data analytics, or is it still by intuition? So how much of your work involves data analytics?
So I think everything is data analytics. Like I said, so across categories, take any category, like from apparel to automobiles, there is massive competition. There are a huge number of brands, right? 10 years ago, I could possibly count the number of car brands which are there, or even the number of bike brands or whatever. Apparel brands. Today I go on Myntra, I don't even know how to sort for what brands, right? And there are brands I've never heard of ever. So there are multiple customer segments which are there. You have to know, again, like I said, to start with, look at your organization, look at your organization's resources, look at your organization's capacity, and then plan what are the segments in which you can best play in, right? That is very, very important. I think there's a lot of work as marketers, which I didn't do earlier when I was younger, was understanding the organization, that you're part of. And then you have data on everything. So, for example, in our business, we have pro-selection of customers, and there's also anti-selection. There are certain customer segments we know via data that they misuse all insurance policies and so on. And I will charge them higher, because otherwise the cost of those customers will be paid by the bulk of everybody else. So that becomes the base. And then you have to kind of, there are certain parts of marketing which are still intuition led, or right brain led. So if you take at advertising, you can communicate the same message, right, which is about creating an emotional connect through various emotions. Now, do you take happiness? Do you take confidence? Do you take fear? Do you take, a problem solution? That ultimately is a right brain choice. It cannot be driven by data. It can be, but it still is by that, right? But which segments, how much to price it, how much to promote, what's the cost of what you'll pay for a digital acquisition, how much will you spend on upsell, cross-sell, all of those are data bound choices.
Sure. So so we are also coming to a close there as far as time is concerned. But I also want to understand. Of course, we are talking about the new things which have come up over a period of time. As I was mentioning earlier as well, it was more intuition based. It was more. There were fewer channels. Then we have moved into more segments have emerged. It's not like a monolith anymore. Customer segments are various as well. So we have over a period of time also learned a lot of technology tools. Martech became the thing in the mid 2010s. So, if I have to ask you, what new have you learned in, say, the past 2-3 years, despite your, of course, experience and expertise of so many years? What new have you learned in the past 2-3 years?
Anyway, in my category, we pretty much had to relearn everything because we went into a pandemic that obviously took us from 100 to 0 overnight. And obviously, it was literally restarting in a completely new environment where we literally had to create category demand, forget brand demand. So I'd say in the last 2.5 years, we pretty much relearned everything. So a lot has also changed or been accelerated during the pandemic for our segment. So I'd argue a lot of it has changed. But I just want to make one point on the earlier discussion is that if you look at this whole debate that's always existed between science and art for marketing,
Yeah.
I think that's really where, if you go to the theme of this conference itself, is that whole magic of using data uh, as a means to package in a creative, warm, human, endearing way is really what marketers have to do, right? The risk is just using data to take a decision. There are short-term data points that can distract you, so you have to sift the sort of trends from the what shall I say short-term data distractions. And the second thing is actually the ability to use that data in a form that can make your normal communication capabilities more lethal. I think that's really where I'd say the sweet spot is.
Nothing?
So I actually keep Fridays 3 o'clock onwards, for either meeting up new partners, new agencies, spending time with the team, where each one of us can take our topic and discuss some stuff. Because I think so there's lots to learn. There's lots to learn from marketing. There's actually lots to learn from society. There's lots to learn from media. Uh, a lot of earlier marketing used to be based on how classically people fought wars. So off late, I've actually been watching a lot of clips of how actually the current Gaza conflict is happening, and people are using drones to send to certain micro locations, finding out where the adversary is, and then proceeding. And I've been thinking as to how do I use that in some format to do some test and learns, so to speak, and see how we can apply that at scale, because we're acquiring, say, 3 crore customers a year. So I have to figure out not something which works for a marketing case study, but what can actually impact the business. But that's something which has been playing at the back of my mind. So I think the joy of being a marketer is that if you love learning, this is the best place for it. And marketing ultimately is just one part of what consumers are going through life. Our society is going through a big change. We're becoming highly aspirational. There's a massive premiumization happening. So I think there's an opportunity for us to learn a lot. I think the key for marketers is actually not just look at their own teams and keep refreshing teams and learn from youngsters, but partner with agencies, specialists who have more in-depth knowledge and have the humility to learn from them.
So, building a whole category again and learning constantly from the world outside of marketing and corporate world. Yogesh?
So I didn't learn in the last tool or the last tech that I was trying to learn is on audio. It's called the ultra wide band. The it's the how it's how we provide audio to an audio file without a wire. So we are in studio headphones. People use our headphones for audio monitoring, which is an audio engineer, programmer, composer, director. All of these guys use our headphones. And then there is this consumer segment which has gone completely wireless into this smaller unit. Right? And we're trying to tell people that what they've actually recorded is what you're hearing on that smaller unit. It's farce. That's not true at all. So there is this new tech that our R&D team has come up with. It's a wireless tech, but not in a small unit. It's a much bigger unit. Also, we have a player for it. So I was trying to learn that unit to try and see if I can convince myself to convince someone else to buy it. I've not reached there yet. And from my perspective, if you know your product well, you don't need any marketing tool, you can sell it.
Right. That's like drinking your own champagne first.
Correct.
Certainly, and what we see is that these are seasoned marketeers and they themselves are constantly learning. Everybody talked about how their own marketing is changing because they are ingesting more data, they are analyzing more data, and yet at the same time, I see a common thread that you still feel that kind of intuition is required ultimately to analyze that kind of data. So, an excellent discussion. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And now we have seen the evolution of marketer, and subsequently we would be moving to the more new age topics of AI. So over to you, Kaustav, to take over the proceedings.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. May I request you to be on stage with us for a minute longer? Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for such an insightful discussion that we had right in the morning, right? And may I request... All right, we have a photo session. Yeah. We're going to have a lot of these. So I'm sure you would need something to do while these are happening, right? So we have a QR code, as I had said, and people who have joined us later. All right, can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Oberoi as he hands over some mementos to our esteemed speakers. And now, while this is happening, may I request you all to scan the QR code that you see on screen. And it connects you to a poll. It's a very short poll which would help us understand a few things about you better. So I would request you all, it won't take more than a minute or two of your time. So if you can just zoom in, catch that image and fill up the poll for us, please. Thank you.